My name is Olivia Sinclair, and I was 32 the morning my mother rang my doorbell for the first time in 14 years. She stood on my porch holding a leather folder, smiled like we'd had lunch the Tuesday before, and quoted the price of my own house at me the way you'd read a bill out loud. $170,000. That's what's fair, Libby. I had never given my mother this address. Never given her my phone number, my town, my name on a mailbox. She had all of it anyway. By the end of that year, my mother would put a price on raising me. A judge would read her handwriting out loud in open court. And my father, the quiet one, the harmless one, would do something on the courthouse steps that not even she saw coming. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where women tell the family stories they used to only whisper. If this one finds you at the right time, subscribe and stay to the end. Carol Sinclair, 58, hairset, coat pressed, stood on my porch in Cedar Run, Ohio, 2 hours from the town I'd escaped. I kept the screen door latched. "Livy," she said, warm as a bank teller at closing. "You look thin, small business will do that." I asked how she'd found me. She laughed like the question was adorable. "Found you." "Honey, I never lost you. Sinclair Ledger Services, cute name. County website, it's all public." I keep up. 14 years of unlisted numbers, of checking parking lots before getting out of my car, and she'd been watching over me the whole time, the way a lender watches collateral. She patted the folder against her palm. "I didn't drive 2 hours to fight. I came with an offer. Family fare." At the curb, my father's truck idled, a shape behind the wheel that didn't wave and didn't look at me. To explain what was in that folder, I have to go back to Marion, Ohio, and a spiral notebook with a green cover that lived on our refrigerator. My mother called it the family book. New sneakers went in it. A field trip went in it, sack lunch itemized separately. At 14, when I got my first job scooping ice cream, she sat me down like a benefits coordinator and explained I was old enough to contribute. Room and board, $40 a week, due Fridays, receipted in handwriting so neat it looked printed. I thought every family had a book like that until I ate dinner at a friend's house, and nobody handed me an invoice, and something in my stomach shifted and never shifted back. The one place math didn't apply was my grandmother June's kitchen, where she'd pour tea from her good china and say, "You're not a bill, June bug. You're a girl." I didn't understand until years later why she said it like an apology. My mother wasn't cruel the way movies show cruel. She never hit me, never screamed. She just kept the ledger, patiently line after line, the way other mothers keep photo albums. The spring I turned 18, she laid out my future at that kitchen table, the green book open like scripture. I'd stay home, work full-time, night shift paid better, and my checks would go toward the raising balance. 18 years of food, clothes, heat, patience, all lovingly documented. College was a luxury item, and luxury items were for people with a zero balance. I said no, the first flat no of my life. She didn't yell. She recalculated, warned me that ungrateful girls who walk from family debts find out what the world charges for the same services. My father stood in the doorway with his coffee and said the sentence that would follow me for 14 years. "Just give her what she wants, Livy. It's easier." That night I packed 2 duffel bags, took my work shoes, my birth certificate, $1,100 hidden in a tampon box, and walked to the depot in the dark. It wasn't triumph I felt, it was arithmetic. I'd done the math she taught me and concluded I couldn't afford to be her daughter. I waited tables, stocked shelves overnight, slept in a room with a radiator stuck between off and Florida. At 20, I started night classes. At 22, I had an accounting degree and a discovery. I was freakishly good at making numbers tell the truth. At 26, I opened Sinclair Ledger Services, spitting the family name back into the wind. I kept everything, every lease, every bank statement since the month I turned 18, filed by year, typed labels. My friend Rachel called it my doomsday library. I called it habit. The truth is girls who grow up itemized never stop preparing for an audit. My grandmother June found me at 25. She'd had my number the whole time, just waited until calling wouldn't cost me anything at home. 2 years of Sunday calls followed. Near the end, she said something strange. "I did it to your mother too, June bug. I just paid different. I wish I had pushed." She died at 81, radio on in her sleep. At the funeral, my mother hugged the receiving line with identical duration, then looked at me across the casket the way you'd look at a storage unit you'd been paying on for years. Not longing inventory. 2 weeks later, a bank officer called. June had left a payable on death account, $20,000, designated to one name, Olivia Sinclair. No probate, no detours. 15 minutes after the funeral lunch, my mother had asked me, sweet as pie, what I planned to do with the family's money. I sat on that money 2 years. Then a little brick ranch on Merrill Lane came up. $170,000, abode front window, sun all day. I brought $34,000 to closing. June's 20 plus 14, I'd saved $1 at a time. When the title officer slid the deed across and said congratulations, I had to excuse myself to the parking lot. I planted marigolds along the walk, because a house on Merrill Lane without marigolds is a bookkeeping error. I put June's teacup on the windowsill. For 3 years, that house held my whole quiet life. What I didn't think about was the county recorder's website. Every deed public, searchable, free. A love letter, if the person reading it was built a certain way. So there she stood, opening that folder against her forearm like a waitress with a check tray. Family property agreement, typed at the library, reading like a ransom note edited by a church secretary. I would sell my parents the house for exactly what I'd paid. Nobody's cheating you, Libby. Except the house was now worth $235,000. And the $65,000 difference was the raising balance, 18 years of room and board called due. "You bought this with June's money," she said, warmth gone like a coat dropped. "And June's money was my money. That woman skipped over me to spite me, and I am done being skipped." I said no. She said, "We're not asking, Olivia. We're collecting," wedged the folder into my screen door and walked back to the truck. 30 days, she called, like a dentist confirming an appointment. I photographed every page before touching it barehanded, logged the time, the words, the truck. Monday, I hired Dana Reeves, a Dayton litigator with a handshake like a stapler. She read the agreement twice and set it down. "This is a wish list, not a contract. No consideration, no signatures." Then, "But your mother believes it. That's the dangerous part." People who believe their own paperwork don't stop at the porch. Don't answer unknown numbers. Never meet them alone. Everything in writing. The campaign started before the 30 days were up, because the lawsuit is always the second front. The first is the story, and my mother had a 14-year head start. My Aunt Sharon called crying, not acting, telling me my parents had sold their house believing they had nowhere else to go, that I was sitting alone in a mansion. The church prayer chain added my name, the wayward daughter. A client with a Marian cousin quietly pulled his account. I didn't post my side. I logged everything and fed the cat. Then came the certified letter, Krebs and Associates, demanding conveyance of Merrill Lane within 14 days or litigation would follow. Dana's reply was 1 page, lawyer for no. Her retainer was $5,000, straight out of my roof fund. "A meritless lawsuit isn't designed to win," she told me. "It's designed to bleed you every month." That's not a side effect, that's the product. My mother, who'd once charged a 14-year-old rent in her own bedroom, was very good at waiting out a siege. 31 days after the porch, a deputy served me on my own welcome mat. Sinclair v. Sinclair. Unjust enrichment, constructive trust, promissory estoppel, and stapled behind it, a notice of Lee's pendants already recorded against my deed. "A flag on your title," Dana said. You can't sell, can't refinance, while their case rides along. And in the exhibit list, Exhibit A, the family ledger. She was walking that green notebook into court as proof. I opened the scanned file at lunch one Thursday and didn't recover for hours. Diapers, formula, the year I turned one, a running balance carried forward like I'd been born owing. Sneakers, field trips, Then the Friday envelopes starting at 14, each one checked off, received, room and board collected. At some point, she'd started charging interest on my babysitting money. Dana went quiet reading it. Olivia, I've been doing this almost 20 years. And I have never seen a plaintiff hand me their own cross-examination. That night, I brought out my banker's box, bank statements since I turned 18, the lease with the broken radiator. Every tax return, June's payable on death paperwork, the full closing file for Merrill Lane, and in a plastic sleeve, the thing even Rachel didn't know I'd kept. The actual rubber-banded brick of Friday envelope receipts in my mother's handwriting, taken from my room the night I left. Because some animal part of me had always known I'd need to prove what my childhood cost. She wanted to fight with ledgers. I'd been kept like one, and I'd survived into a woman who kept them better. At my deposition, Krebs asked his gentle, leading questions, "Weren't you supported through your childhood?" And Dana's rule held, "Answer only what's asked." Yes, I lived there. Support isn't the word I'd use. The account was payable on death to me by name. He'd built his file from years of my own social media, printed and annotated in my mother's handwriting. She hadn't just found me when she wanted the house. She'd been reading me for years. At her own deposition in October, my mother dropped the performance for one unrehearsed minute. At 19, her father had died. She'd worked days at a fabric store and nights cleaning offices, signing every paycheck over to June, raising her sister Sharon. Watching a nursing school acceptance letter expire because June kept saying, "Next year." 9 next years. "I paid my mother back every cent," she said, hands unsteady. Then June takes my inheritance and hands it over my head to the one person who never paid anybody anything. For one breath, I saw the 19-year-old at that cold table and understood my whole childhood as her unpaid invoice to a dead woman. Then Dana asked if she'd charged interest on my babysitting money, and without blinking she said, "Money teaches. It was for her own good." The pity dried up fast. By November, the family had sorted itself like rock salt on a shaking screen. Sharon delivered an ultimatum by phone: drop the fight, come to Thanksgiving, or be forever known as the girl who sued her mother. There was no countersuit, there was only me declining to hand over my house. Cousins went quiet. Then, one midnight, my father's voice on the line, low and rough. "Livy, just give her what she wants." "It's easier." I asked him for the first time. "Easier for who, Dad?" The line clicked shut, soft, not slammed. Legal bills crossed 11,000. The lease pendants killed a refinance that would have saved me $240 a month. One night at my kitchen table, I ran the numbers on my own mother. Column 1, settle for the 40,000 Krebs had floated and make it disappear. Column 2, fight, no guarantee, months more. I looked at the banker's box by the door and understood. 40,000 wouldn't buy an ending. It would buy her a receipt proving the ledger had worked. I crossed out column 1. In the morning, Dana called. Discovery was closed. There was nothing in it but a notebook and hurt feelings, and she was filing for summary judgment. Her argument had 3 parts. The payable on death account transferred directly to me the moment June signed it. No promises, no probate. Ohio's statute of frauds requires any promise about land to be in writing, and there was none. And unjust enrichment requires a benefit conferred. My mother had put not $1 into Merrill Lane. What she conferred, Dana said dryly, was a childhood invoiced at market rate. Around then, I finally opened an envelope June had left me years earlier, marked for Olivia, "When Carol finds you." When not if. Inside, a single card. "It was never your debt, June Bug. It was mine. Don't pay it twice." At the hearing, Judge Callahan asked Krebs to show him the writing, the benefit conferred. There was neither. Then he picked up the green notebook, my mother's own exhibit, read one line silently, then aloud into the record. "Room and board, age 14, collected." He looked at her. "Ma'am, this is your handwriting." She sat up straighter. "Yes, Your Honor, I've always kept fair books. Children are an investment like anything else. I'm not asking for charity. I'm only collecting what I'm owed," he said quietly, "Ma'am, that may be the saddest sentence anyone has said in my courtroom," and adjourned. Summary judgment for the defendant, all counts. No writing, no promise, no benefit conferred, and a footnote noting the plaintiff's own exhibit documented not loans, but the systematic monetization of a minor child. The Lee's pendants was released. The house was mine, clean, top to bottom. Dana wanted to file for sanctions, $14,500 in fees, frivolous conduct. I flinched at becoming the one holding out a bill. "You are allowed," Dana said, "to not pay for your own mugging." I told her to file it. At the sanctions hearing, my mother, alone now, Krebs having withdrawn once his bills stopped clearing, represented herself and made her real case. The sacrifices, the raising balance. Arithmetic worn into grooves over decades. Callahan ruled against her, ordering her to pay my fees. She turned to the gallery of strangers and said, wonder in her voice, "Do you see what she is? She's charging her own mother." I sat very still because she meant it. In her country, she is forever the creditor and I am forever the debtor who ran. The courthouse steps came after. Hard blue sky, salted concrete, and ice-sleeved railing. My mother, close to my father by the truck, her voice carrying in pieces on the wind. "She took everything, Ray, and you just stand there, you have always just stood there." My father crossed the lot fast and wrong, a man late for something, and I did not understand until he was 3 steps away and I saw he was crying. He took my shoulders, 40 years of torque wrenches in his grip, and shook me, roaring a voice I'd never heard. Give it back, Libby." Then the world went sideways. I hit the railing hip first, my wrist twisting wrong on the ice, my elbow splitting on stone. Deputies who'd watched through the security door had him face down in the salt in seconds. My mother stood 20 feet from her bleeding daughter and shouted at them, "That's my daughter, that is a family matter." Severe wrist sprain, 3 stitches, a split lip. My father spent the night in a cell, charged with assault. I filed for a civil protection order. Ohio's definition covers a parent you once lived with, no matter how long ago, granted the same day. I signed a witness statement for the prosecutor. I walked in as their daughter and walked out as the state's witness, and there was no walking that back. 4 days later, my mother's voicemail, warmth restored like nothing had happened. "Your father is sick over this, he tripped. Come home, I'll make the roast, all of it forgiven." I want to be honest. That voicemail worked on me for a moment, not the logic of it, just the word home in her mouth, tuned by 32 years of wanting it. Then I picked up June's teacup, reread her note, "Don't pay it twice," and saved the voicemail into the case file, so I'd never again wonder what her forgiveness cost. The protection order was granted, 5 years, no contact. At the assault trial, the defense asked if this was really just revenge for the lawsuit I'd already won. I looked at my own evidence stacked on the prosecution table, my folders, my labels, 14 years of receipts, and understood I'd been keeping her ledger all along, just in a different currency. And it was never going to fill. "No, sir," I said, "it isn't revenge. It's the first true thing this family has ever put in writing." My mother, called as a defense witness, came apart on the stand, not composed cracking, a dam breaking, insisting it wasn't over. It would never be over until I paid what I owed, then finding my face across the courtroom and saying, without any sweetness at all, "After everything I put into you. After everything I paid, the judge found my father guilty." Before sentencing, I stood and said I wasn't there to collect, that I'd been paying an invented debt since I was 14 and I was done, and being done wasn't the same as getting even. Then, to her only, "Love isn't a ledger, Mom." She flinched, the first honest flinch I'd ever seen on her face. My father got a suspended sentence, probation, anger management, no contact. Outside, my 19-year-old cousin Danny was waiting on a bench in a tie he clearly didn't own, because somebody from the family should be on my side of the hallway. I hugged him with my one good arm. Spring came the way it does in Ohio, mud first, then all at once. The fee judgment got paid in pieces, and I never charged her a cent past my actual costs, because there was never going to be a version of me that charged interest. The refinance closed clean in April. My mother's appeal deadline passed unfiled. 2 attorneys had declined the case. She and my father moved into an apartment in Marion, and by all accounts, she still tells the story her way, at every table that will still seat her. Sharon still writes, "Family is forever. The door is always open." And I don't answer, not out of anger anymore, just because that account is closed. You can't make a deposit at a bank that's been demolished. The Marigolds came back on their own that spring, volunteers from last season's seed. Most Sundays now, there's a beat-up hatchback in my driveway, and Danny at my kitchen table eating everything that isn't nailed down while I walk him through his financial aid forms, line by line. For free, forever. First one in the family to go to college, he says. Second, I tell him, I just took the long way. On an ordinary Tuesday, no ceremony, I took the banker's box down for the last time. The working papers went back on the shelf where they belonged. June's note went into the drawer with my passport. And the Brick of Friday envelope receipts, $40 a week, age 14 to 18, in my mother's flawless hand, I held for a minute, waiting to feel something enormous. Instead, it felt like holding a stranger's expired utility bill. I dropped it in the recycling with the seed catalogs and rolled the bin to the curb. That night, I started my own notebook, not a ledger, a garden journal with a bee on the cover. No signs in it anywhere. April, I wrote, "Marigolds came back on their own." Then I sat in my quiet kitchen, in the life I was told I could never afford, and noticed the silence had changed temperature. It used to be held breath. Now it was just evening. Nobody was coming to collect anything, and everything in that house, including the woman in it, was finally, fully paid for. So here's the one thing I have to leave you with. If someone hands you a bill for loving you, you don't owe the balance. You owe yourself the door because love that keeps a ledger was never love at all. It was layaway. Host/narrator voice. If you've ever felt like your family relationships were built on ledgers rather than love, remember, you are not alone. Here at Com Drama Stories, we bring you the real, unspoken, and deeply moving family stories that need to be heard. If Olivia's story gave you even a fraction of courage today, please drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a story. And let us know in the comments down below, what would you have done if you were in Olivia's shoes?